We have a guest student up here on. Hello. Would you like to say something, Artemis? Oh, very good. She really puts the
All
art
right, there's Eloise's dog driving and
one
waking up.
on.
One of three. All right, welcome to class 1, part 3, where we are actually going to start the lesson plan finally here. Now we're into the class, but thank you for letting me get to know you guys and describe our Padlet page and how that works, our online classroom. And what we're going to do is we are going to quickly talk about the foundations of composition and value, building strong paintings from the ground up. And we are going to be talking today a little bit about using thumbnails. So for some of you, this will be a bit of a review, and but super important. In one of our handouts on the Padlet page, I have a checklist that I go through that I do not follow every painting. I wish I did, but I'm very excitable and very optimistic and think whatever I'm doing is going to be great. But I found a system that helps me to create better work on a more regular basis, and doing thumbnail sketches and really kind of thinking about the work before I jump into the big canvas is really useful for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a share and jump over to just a couple examples of artists' work. There we go. So these are different examples of ways people are using thumbnails to help their work. In our homework section, which is the last half of the handout and in the email, I give 5 different ways that you can use thumbnails, or 5 different ways you can practice this week. I found that offering different ways to do the homework each week has been really fun, because that way when we go and review, everybody's got different things going on, and it's really fun, and we're all approaching it in different ways. Study in thumbnails. I learned about this from a British artist whose name I cannot remember right now, but she is so good about putting plastic overlays over famous paintings that she just loves, and using permanent marker or a wipe away marker on the overlay just really looks for the big values, the big shapes and the movement within the piece, and really starts dissecting, like, why is this working? So I went ahead and grabbed this as an example, and it's just really breaking these complex masters paintings into 3 values: a light, medium, and a dark. And I thought it was really interesting. Like, look at the beautiful section back of this Albert Bierstadt painting. You know, the whole mountains just disappears in a simple 3 value painting. And again, if we squint our eyes at this bottom painting, we can see that, right? So it's just really a great way. A lot of times when I'm doing thumbnail sketches, and thumbnail sketches are just a preliminary sketch to get the layout and the design pattern, and the value pattern of the image. A lot of times whole areas of interest just kind of simplify and disappear. But what happens if we can ignore this left side and look to the right side here is we can say, yes, there's interesting movement, there's a balance, there's a sense of rhythm in each one of these that, when told, when taken to a finished painting, really becomes much more complex and interesting, but holds true due to the value structure. All right, so let me go ahead and start reading my handouts here. Foundation of composition and value, building strong paintings from the ground up. Why composition matters. All right. I think for a lot of us, composition is kind of the right side of the brain versus the fun left side of the brain, right? It's the more mathematical, analytical side. And I try to get it out of the way as soon as possible, because that's not the part of my brain I have that much fun with. It's not the part of my brain that works the best. The other part is a lot more fun. And so, but I do find that if I skip this stage, if I skip the thoughtful stage, then I'm not having as much fun because I'm having to bounce back and forth, right? If I can lay down a good framework and a good foundation, then once that's kind of out of the way, I can become so much more free with color and brush work, and the more just having that conversation with the painting. But I try to do it in a way that's loose enough that I'm always open to happy accidents. You know, a lot of Bob Ross quotes in my classes here, but the happy accident, right? It's just, oh, that's fun. That's working, and it's not something I previously thought about. So why composition matters? Composition is the backbone of visual storytelling. It's how we arrange shapes, lines, and values to guide the viewer's eye and create emotional resonance. A strong composition doesn't just happen, it's designed with intention. And in fact, my word for this year, I try to think of a word each year, New Year's, was intention, because I felt like I was getting away from that too much. I was becoming too free, and I was creating too many paintings on impulse that just kind of flew off the handle. And so coming back a little bit was a good tool for me. A strong composition doesn't just happen, it's designed with intention. Whether you're painting a sweeping landscape or a quiet interior, understanding composition helps you make choices to support your story. So we're going to be dealing with that this whole entire class. Key principles of composition: balance, distribute visual weight across the canvas. That doesn't mean symmetry, it means harmony. Unity and variety. Use repetition to create cohesion and contrast to keep things interesting. Movement. Lead the viewer's eye through the painting using lines, shapes, and shifts in value. Focal point, or what I like to call areas of focus. Decide what's most important. Use contrast, placement, and detail to draw attention. Hierarchy. Not everything should compete for attention. Let some areas rest while others shine. All right, so these are examples of thumbnails. I don't know the artist or even the size of these, but a lot of times when I'm out in the field, like plein air painting, my thumbnail sketches can be as little as 2 inches by 3 inches. And it's just big, dark shapes. I use a lot of tools. A lot of times it's just a number 2 pencil and a simple piece of paper. They don't have to be fancy. They can be just kind of scribbled in. And sometimes they can be more ornate and more finished. It's up to you. This is an artist just using basically a black pen. And I love how they're testing, like, what if the positives were negative? What if the negatives were positive? Just checking different formats for the image. So a lot of times when I'm, before I start a painting, but I have a good photo that I want to paint from, I will go ahead and do a couple, one that's close to the original photo, one that's cropped in, one that is turned vertical. So I'm editing out one that might be a square format where I'm really having to edit things to make them work. So I want you, as you're deciding on your images going forward, to really think, what are the possibilities? Really just go, just because I took a horizontal panoramic photo doesn't mean it needs to be that. I could zoom in or I can crop. And it's really important that we do this. We're going to start asking ourselves, what's important, what's not. One of my favorite quotes for myself is, if it's not helping, it's hurting.
Right.
And so just say, just what is necessary. The role of values. Values refer to the lightness or darkness of a color. It's one of the most important tools in composition. Even without color, a well-designed value structure can carry a painting. All right, so up here, this is David Dibble, just a fantastic painter. I really was excited to see this little page that he had made up on his website, where you can see the same scene, this barn and this fence, done in numerous different ways with backlight, low light, side light with the shadows being cast, and kind of a side light from the other direction where the fences are in light and the shadow would be behind them, right? You can see the building in light here, the building in shadow here. It looks like this is the version that he chose, right down here in his finished painting. You can see how important that is. And I mean, I love backlighting, so I might be tempted to do something like this. I love that cast shadow coming down, but this really works. This light and this dark leading in towards this kind of focal area and here, just beautiful. All right. Value contrast. So you got high contrast, meaning strong lights and darks. High contrast draws the eye. Use it to highlight the focal points, right? So you have this strong lit area up against the darks. You know, you have the strong lit area all over, but when it gets next to the darkest darks, it draws our eye in. Not to mention he's got guiding lines leading the eye into that area. Value grouping. Simplify complex scenes by grouping similar values. So Edgar Payne, these are probably the most famous series of thumbnails in the world, as far as I know. His whole book is worth buying just for his thumbnail sketches, which take up about 6 pages in the middle of the book. But I love how he just takes these big areas and simplifies them. You should see his cloud images and things like that, but he's just looking for the lines and what's moving us through. Same with this artist here, whose name Ian McHugh. I just love how he's simplifying the shapes. I mean, look, they become almost just mathematical, right? Just very simplified. He's just looking for balance and movement through the piece by doing value groupings, keeping things simple. So a lot of times the thumbnails will just take me, I can do 3 or 4 thumbnails in about 5 to 6 minutes. And it's just a way for me to just do some quick testing so that I know I'm making as good a choice as I can in that moment. See, okay, here we go. Atmosphere and depth. This is Joseph Abranco. Lighter values can suggest distance. Darker values anchor the foreground, right? So I do a lot of more atmospheric pictures. I love haze. I mean, living in the Pacific Northwest, it's literally what's happening outside my window is a gray, foggy day with beautiful fall colors in the foreground. And so I would be playing with this. And this is one of the reasons, well, I'll show you in a little bit, but a lot of the thumbnails, especially when I'm in the studio, I will actually do with acrylic paint, black and white acrylic paint, just like he did here. This is ink, but he's using a water miscible, I think, or maybe it's an alcohol ink, where he can create soft edges. Value studies, structure before detail. So this is James Pake, who interesting. My phone just started playing music for us. So James Pake does a lot of just very much like what we call a no-tan, which just means dark and light, it's a Japanese term, where you just are looking for balance and movement and structure. Things stay almost abstracted through this, but you're just looking at the balance and the structure. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Before diving into color, we'll practice simple value studies using black, white, and a few grays. These studies help us focus on structure and design, test compositional ideas quickly, and avoid getting lost in service detail. It's great to work small and think of these as visual brainstorming sessions. So I almost pictured James Pake like in a coffee shop or in an art studio or wherever he is, just sitting down with his little sketch pad and just doing these little tiny quick sketches, trying to figure out what is interesting, what's the balance, what's the movement. Here's some tools. I love these Copic sketch pens. I don't know if you guys can see me as well. Can you guys see me as well as the screen? So I just will get a light, medium, and dark of these Copic pens, and they're fantastic for doing quick little sketches. A lot of artists do just do black and white or a no tan. I actually prefer to have a in-between gray. I like to keep my values to 3 up to 5 values, but not more when I'm doing my thumbnail sketches. I don't want to overwork it and overthink it. Let me do a well, I'll just keep going through here. Designing with intention. This is Joseph Abrenko. Planning your painting with thumbnail sketches. Thumbnails are small. Oh, I think this is in the wrong section here. Thumbnails are small, quick drawings that explore layout, quick values, and focal points. They're not about detail. They're about design. A good thumbnail helps you to see the bones of your painting before you commit to a large canvas. They clarify your vision. So you can see that, you know, if Joseph was outside looking for images or looking through his photos, he's just doing these sketches to see how do they work. They clarify your vision. They can test multiple ideas without any pressure, right? Some of these are really sketchy. Some of these are a little more refined. This is Liz Haywood, who does, I think, really interesting work, really simplifying and breaking them down here. They save time. Catch compositional problems early. That's one of the main things for me. They build confidence. You'll know where you're going before you start. And they support storytelling, right? You can tell where the shadows and the light is coming across here. You can plan how light, shadows, and placement guide the viewer's experience. Marla Baguetta, here's another Portland artist here. How to create effective thumbnails. Keep them small. 2 to 3 inches wide is plenty. Again, when I'm in the field, you know, painting, or when I'm traveling, I'll do, I bet you these are all little tiny 2x3 or 3x3 inch sketches. I do like to work larger when using black and white paint in the studio. Like today, I'll probably be doing like 6x8s. Limit yourself to 3 to 5 values, light, midtones, and darks. Focus on shape relationships and value contrasts. So if you look at what Marla's doing here, she's not focusing on detail, right? There's not grasses, even though the pens look like they're painting grasses. There's not leaves. It's just light and dark shapes. Focus on shape relationships and value contrast. Try several versions before choosing one to develop. Your objective. Oh, let's go to the next one. This is Nathan Fowkes, who's does a lot of work in animation and movies, and really, I love looking at his work. So interesting. Does a lot of studies in gouache. Planning a small painting. Once you've explored your ideas through thumbnails, choose one to develop into a painting. Ask yourself, where is the focal point or areas of focus? How does the viewer's eyes move through the scene? Are the value contrasts supporting the story? Is there a clear hierarchy of importance? This is your chance to refine your layout and to begin painting with intention. The goal is not perfection. It's clarity, it's confidence, and it's connection. Besides sharing it with your fellow students, nobody sees your thumbnail sketches. I have books and books and books filled with these, you know, that most of them I can hardly even tell what I was painting, you know, what I was referencing. It's just me getting quick little ideas. So let's see if we have a couple more examples. This is just using different references. Like this is just a simple line sketch, which can work, right? You're just simplifying. He's not telling us every single bush, every piece of grass, every detail. He's just breaking it into as simple as shapes as possible. Here he's doing it as a no tan, just black and white, which is really nice because you can see how the lights connect and the darks connect and they move our eye through it. And this is closer to what I generally will do, which is a limited value, 3 to 4 values. And that just helps me to plan out my paints a little bit better. You can see he probably did these in minutes, right? love this. These charcoal sketches, just so gorgeous and so abstracted and so interesting. Really just picking out the strong detail. And if you're in one of my previous classes, the gesture and the movement, right?
Are these your charcoals?
No, I wish. I never used charcoal, hardly ever. I just a drawer with a box in that was hidden in my daughter's part of the studio. So I may start doing some, but no, I rarely do it. So are you guys seeing me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to show you a couple quick examples. Like this is a sketchbook I did while I was in Italy. And these are those, so these are some really tiny ones that I did, just using, again, those Copic markers. And then one extra tool I like to add is a little white pen that actually you can see, I can bring in some detail across the top. There'll be some better examples of that. But if I wanted to add detail or like these little lines where the ripples are in the water, I can do that with this white pen. It actually draws right over the top. It's almost like a paint pen. I also have a big version of a white paint pen. So just real quick little show and tell. This is just from our apartment view of looking across some roofs in Italy. But I do these little studies just to kind of get an idea. Like I did this one, realized it wasn't probably going to make a great painting. I never painted this. So, you know, a lot of times it's useful in the fact that it saves me hours of painting time because I'm in Italy. There's probably something else I can just turn around and paint that would be better. Some of these, this is just a little tiny pencil sketch, you know, just out of the window of our studio that we were painting in one time. And that was the only view. So I was just trying to figure out where do I focus. These are ones that I really like. These are, this is the place we were staying. Actually, that's the door to the kitchen there. And then this was the neighbor's house. And I just was focusing just on the lights and the darks, the shadows. And yeah, they're just fun little notes. I actually painted a little series of these. This is the road leading up to that same place. And I was just really curious, and I wanted to catch the light as it was raking across the shadows, as they're raking across the road up to that little villa. And I just thought that was really interesting. And you know, I was able to do a horizontal and a vertical. I ended up painting the vertical and zooming in, and I think I cropped out this section, maybe kind of like to there. Just more little tiny sketches. This is of the trees. So you can see here's one that I started but didn't finish. And it just starts off really rough. And then I can get it to be really refined, especially with that little white pen. And I just, yeah, they're a lot of fun. They take me just a little while. Here's one that I did with acrylic paint, black and white, in San Francisco. And this was just, you know, for one, this was all I was carrying was this and a couple little paints. And I wanted to, you know, sit on a park bench, talk to a homeless guy for a while, and just did this little quick study of a park in San Francisco. Same park, just looking sideways, just of the church or whatever building that was. And they're simple, right? They're just basic kind of quick sketches. I think that might be, yeah, a couple others. Just, you can see they're messy. A lot of times I start them with this kind of undervalue, kind of the mid or light value, and then I can just build them up and just thinking about atmosphere and light. So they can be as complicated or as simple as you want. Oh, I guess there is one more. This was just the beginning of one as well. This was a forest scene near the cabin where we stay. And I just was trying to not paint the trees, not paint the things, but just the patterning of the lights and the darks, right? Again, a painting I never ended up doing just because it didn't quite work. The balance was off. It just felt awkward. This one's an example of doing them in gouache, which is like, well, here's the first one is in pen and ink. And just again, getting the idea. This one I did end up painting, changed it quite a bit. I changed the focus to this area where the light was coming from, but I really like these radiating lines. So I'm just investigating different aspects of the image before I start painting. Sometimes I do them in quick little just colors, but really quick. These are gouache paintings. I think these took me about 15 minutes each. I never did end up, well, this is again, I was backpacking, so I only had this little sketchbook, but just to get ideas. I use blue tape oftentimes just to mark off the area. Here's an example of what that looks like. So that's the very, very beginning, very messy, very gestural. And when I remove the blue tape, I get these nice clean lines. This was a really fun one, but standing in the snow. And I knew I didn't want to stand in the snow to paint very long. So I just did a quick study with black and white paint again. Ended up not even, well, I did paint it later, but ended up just taking lots of photos of my daughter in the snow with these trees because they're so beautiful and the light was so nice. But at least I captured the information I wanted to paint from later. And then just lots of little just ideas. And so thumbnails can be in color. They can just be quick little sketches, you know, some more successful than others. Does that make sense to you guys?
What media were you using in these most
These are
recent?
all gouache.
Oh, they're all gouache.
If they're in, pretty much all of these are in gouache. Gouache is just a super similar, really like this little guy, right?
Yeah, this is nice.
Very nice.
But it's just a gouache is great because it packs really small. Like all of my kit, the pens, a little tiny paint set, which the brushes actually break in half. So I can extend them, make them like a normal size brush, or they can be really short. And just a couple colors. I use just a really simple little palette. It all fits into, you know, what would look like a purse. I prefer to call it a satchel.
They're regular gouache and not acrylic gouache.
Yeah, I've never used acrylic gouache, but I've heard good things about it. But yeah, like this is again just a quick view. This was at one of my daughter's soccer games, and just actually I think it was at a practice, so I wasn't missing the game. I was just, but I just saw that the sunset was going to be interesting. I like this little, so these are just great tools. This is the view from our cabin again. Yeah, so these are just great quick tools that you can just keep with you and just have with you. So sometimes it's just about gathering notes. Like you guys have seen versions of this in my paintings. And this was one of the preliminaries. It's very messy. I never finished it or refined it or anything, but I was just dashing down colors. And again, here's a very beginning. You can see how messy and crazy they can be. But I'm just trying to capture the light as it was hitting these trees and these grasses. And I thought it was so interesting, but I didn't even have time to bring in the colds and the cool colors that would have made it, a finished image. But yeah, it's just about gathering notes. It's about gathering ideas. It's about working your way through things where you're just free to experiment and play. And in this class, I'm going to ask that you guys do thumbnails almost each time. And this is, in all honesty, is going to be a do as I say, not as I do, because I don't do that, but I sure wish I did more often. So I'm going to punish you for my sins. And I'm going to go ahead and do this going forward. I'm going to be doing thumbnail sketches for each of my paintings. I talk about my buddy Anton Pavlenko, who I go out and paint with, who's just a great painter. And he does thumbnails every time. And he writes notes about what's the interest, what's the focus, what are the colors, whatever it is that's drawing him to the scene that he's going to paint. And it is so invaluable. And it feels like extra work, right? I just want to get painting. I don't want to spend this 10, 15 minutes. But it will save you hours on the back end. All right, quickly. Questions about this? Does this feel like your worst nightmare of a class? Or did you guys see the use in how you're going to be able to use this? Because don't worry. Go ahead.
I definitely wish that I did it more. And I'm now having to reverse engineer thumbnails. So this huge painting I'm doing of realize there's something I don't know how to do, and then I have to step away and play with it, and then I spend like a week getting to understand that one element, and then I go back to it. And it's just like, if I had have done it properly from the beginning and followed the process, it would be done.
Amen, sister. Yeah. So yeah, if you're writing anything down today, here's what I want you to write down. There is no painting your way out of bad design.
Yeah, true.
No fancy brushwork, no amount of beautiful colors will save you from bad design. I learned that lesson weekly. That's why I can say it with authority. I refuse to listen to myself. But it really is. It is so, we talk about this a lot in my classes, that if you get a good design and strong values, you can go buck wild and have the most fun painting. So that's it. Like, I want painting to be fun. I hate the left side of my brain. I don't hate it. I love you, left side of my brain. But I sure do like the right side better. Yeah, that's the party side. That's where the colors and the fun brush strokes and everything else comes in. And but if I spend that little bit of time, right, it's like, planting a garden. Super fun just to throw our plants into the dirt and have a beautiful, but if you prep the soil, dig a bigger hole than you think you need, add more manure, add more soil, add more fertilizer, you know what I mean? Then you're going to have a beautiful garden. It's not going to be just beautiful and fun in that moment. And that's what it is. It's prepping. It's creating the blueprint for your house. It's putting the foundation that you're going to build everything on. And so, yes, it sucks for some of us. Some of us are a little more analytical. Brett has no problem doing thumbnails. He came from that side of the world.
I'd actually say that when I started plein air painting, I didn't do thumbnails, and that people I plein air paint with are. So I started doing thumbnails, and nowadays I'm religious about it. I actually do a thumbnail, then an initial sketch before I start even. I paint big. I'm usually 18 by 24, so I'm a firm believer after about a couple early ones, and I started doing thumbnails. So I'm going. So yeah, I'm religious about it anymore when I'm outside.
Yeah. I get cocky. I just feel like, oh, it's such a good idea. It's such a good design. I see it in my head, and sometimes I get lucky, and that just makes it worse. That for the next painting. So, anyways, I'm going to start doing better this term again because I go back and forth. And anyways, that's going to be our challenge. Pam, I see you have thoughts. What are you thinking about thumbnails and preliminary sketches going into design of your work?
Yeah. Thumbnails. Value. Value. Value.
The value of values.
Well, yes, I have a very analytical brain, and so values are very good for me.
Oh, good.
I want to paint everything, and that when you do the values and you block everything together of similar values and whatnot, it makes it a lot easier.
It really, really does. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't have to paint everything.
No, it's usually better not to, but it depends on your style. I like everything. If you're coming to me, Pam, and you're like, I want to be a photorealistic painter, I'd be like, awesome, not me, but I see you, Graham. What do you got? Sandy?
Yeah. Is there a difference to you in doing thumbnails outside and from a photograph inside? Some of us do not paint outside very much, but paint inside from photos we take outside. So is there some kind of difference?
Yeah, I mean, for sure there's time. Yeah. Outside, I will do those little 2-inch, 3-inch sketches. And sometimes they're super messy. It's literally just looking at the balance of lights and darks and maybe a couple guiding shapes. In the studio, and I'll show you that here in a little bit after break, I will do more like that's where I really love acrylic black and white paints. And what's so fun, actually, remind me to come back to that. We're going to take a break And then I'm going to step up. I'm going to set up the palette, and I'll show you guys some examples here.
Okay.
Great. All right. Perfect. Thank you. Any last minute questions? Otherwise, we'll take you guys want a 5 or 10 minute break?
Hmm.
And
Five?
yeah, no,
Ten.
yeah.
All right. We will be back at 11:10. You guys are awesome. Thank you for letting me blabber on for so long.
Great, Michael.
Go get some tea.
Yes.